This is a video about simple interest, and what I love to think about is, using ways to help me remember formulas. And a great one that I learned was, I am pretty. And the I is interest, am is the same as like is, so equals, and then pretty, P-R-T, pretty. So what do these variables mean? The I is interest. That is the amount of money you are going to make or have to pay. The principal is the amount of money that a loan is for. So if you, for example, if you have money on a credit card, that's your principal. And interest is how much you have to pay. Principal could also be how much money you invested. So if you have money in the stock market, the initial amount of money you put in is the principal. Rate is the percent that you earn, or the percent, like how much they charge you of that, so percent of the number. And once again, this is always going to be needed as a decimal. So if you're given it as a percent, which it normally is, you have to change it to a decimal. And usually this is calculated annually, which means yearly. So you need to have this in years. Now, at this point, have you actually written this down? So if once you're listening to a video, you want to be interacting with your paper, thinking about what you need to do to get the most out of it so that you remember. So I've added in this information, decimals, I've added in this information. Now we have an example here. Teresa invested $1,425 in a savings account at her local bank. The bank pays a simple interest rate of 3.5% annually. How much money will Teresa have after 4 years? The first thing you want to do, if there is ever an equation, is you want to write the equation out. And you can see that some of the letters, some of the variables are capital, the I and the P are, and some are lowercase. So pay attention to that. Whatever you do, do it with excellence. If you start it with excellence, you're going to finish it with excellence. So be on your best here. And I'm going to go and I'm going to read a second time, and I'm going to see if I can find these different pieces of information, also figure out what do I need to find. Teresa invested $1,425. Oh, she invested this. This is the principal, so I'm going to put a P next to it. So she invested that in a savings account at her local bank. The bank pays a simple interest rate, so there's the rate, of 3.5% annually. And then how much money will Teresa have? So how much money, that's going to be the interest she gets after 4 years. That's the time. So we have the rate here and the time and all the information. So we're looking to calculate the interest here. I need so I'm going to start writing down. I'm looking for the interest equals the principal, and the principal was $1,425 times the rate. The rate needs to be as a decimal. So I'm going to write down rate equals 3.5%. And you're like, but it already has a decimal in it. No, it's a percent that has a decimal in it. And how you could change this is you could write this as 3.5 over 100. But you're like, well, that's a fraction. That's not a decimal. And if I multiplied it by a giant 1 of 10 over 10, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to get rid of that 0.5. Multiplying 0.5 by 10 will get that to a 5 instead of a 0.5. So 3.5 times 10 is 35. 100 times 10 is 1,000. Now I can write this as the rate is 35 thousandths. So I have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 35 thousandths. That's my number. And we can practice more with this later, so don't be too worried about that. So 0.035. It's a really good idea to get into the habit of using decimal talk. Once again, decimal talk is, instead of saying 0.035, like what I just did, is like this is 35 thousandths. And then the time was 4 years. And after you're done, then you would multiply that all out, and you would get, So you're going to multiply this out, and you're going to get the $199.50 interest. And let's see if we answer the question. So the question says, how much money will she have after 4 years? So it wasn't asking what is the interest she gets after 4 years, it's how much money will she have. So she had her original money plus the money she earned. So she had the original money, the principal, plus the money she earned. And that's where we're going to get the actual final answer. So it's kind of like they're being a little tricky, but it's, you know, it's pretty common to ask how much money you'll have versus just how much money did you make. So be careful about what the question is. Also, really good idea to be clear. Once again, start with excellence, end with excellence, box your answer so we can see it. Now on the back side of the handout, once again, I've written down some reminders. Write down the formula, make sure you change it into a decimal. Be sure to put things in years. So let's go over just a few. If you have something that is half a year, you would change that to 0.5, and a quarter year, you would make that as 0.25, and 3/4 of a year would be 0.75. So just make sure you remember those if you come across any fractional parts of the year. And when you're done, make sure you also include the units. Is this dollars? Is this years? What are you looking for? Those units are your friends. And do not forget, I am pretty and so are you. Good luck with your handout, and I will talk to you later.